Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Buffalo. Bills Mafia. We need to talk because the worldwide leader just dropped two bombshells about your Buffalo Bills, and one of them is going to make your blood boil. ESPN went out and named their breakout candidate for all 32 teams around the league, and Buffalo's pick might not be who you expect. But that's not even the wild part, because in the same breath, NFL coaches, scouts, and executives around the league sat down and ranked the best running backs in football, and they left James Cook, your rushing champion, sitting outside the top 5. Yeah, we've got a lot to unpack, so let's get into it. Let's start with the breakout pick, because ESPN's Ben Solak went team by team, picking one player from every roster in the league who's primed for a leap forward, and for Buffalo, he landed on defensive tackle TJ Sanders. Now here's the twist. Bills Mafia, and it's a juicy one. Solak straight up admitted he did not like this pick when Buffalo made it. Coming out of the draft last year, he wasn't a fan of Sanders landing in Sean McDermott's defense at all. His reasoning was that Sanders is a bit undersized for a traditional defensive tackle, checking in under 300 pounds with long arms and an upright build, the kind of frame that thrives when he's slanting, stunting, and occasionally sliding out wide as a big defensive end in sub-packages. And here's the thing. That's exactly what Sanders was forced into last year when he came back from a knee injury and found a Bills roster dealing with a rash of injuries along the edge. So almost by accident, Sanders got a taste of the exact role that fits him best. And now here's why Solak flipped his outlook. Buffalo just installed a brand new defense under coordinator Jim Leonhard. One that leans heavily on three-down fronts on passing situations, the kind of scheme that specifically needs big athletic defensive ends who can occupy multiple blockers while pressure comes rushing in from somewhere else. That happens to be tailor-made for what Sanders does best. Solak isn't out here saying Sanders is about to turn into some kind of unstoppable force overnight. He's not projecting him as the next dominant, headline-grabbing name at the position. But he does think Sanders has a real shot at becoming what he calls a dirty work champion, the kind of player who does the unglamorous stuff that makes an entire defensive front function. Now let's be honest about where Sanders is coming from, because the sample size we have on him is tiny. He landed on injured reserve for a stretch last season, which limited him to just 12 games total, and even in those 12 games, he barely sniffed the field, playing under 300 snaps on the entire year. That's less than 30 snaps a game for a player Buffalo traded up in the second round to acquire. In that limited action, he racked up 16 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, a single sack, and 1 pass breakup. He was dipping his toe in the water everywhere, but he never made a single splash play that had Bills Mafia buzzing. He did generate 13 pressures across the season, so there's something there, but the advanced metrics weren't kind either. His overall grade sat in the high 30s, with a pass rush grade just over 50 and a run defense grade in the low 40s. Translation, last year's version of TJ Sanders was not a dominant run stopper, and he wasn't consistently affecting the quarterback either. So is this an every down player waiting to explode onto the scene? Maybe not. But here's the case for optimism. Sanders now has an entirely new coaching staff and scheme built to specifically amplify his skill set. He might not rack up 5 or 6 sacks a season, but he could absolutely become the kind of disruptive, gap-clogging presence who makes life easier for the guys around him. Guys like Deone Walker and Ed Oliver up front. Depending on the situation, expect Buffalo to shuffle alignments between Sanders and Oliver, mixing and matching based on down and distance. And Sanders isn't the only name to watch along that front either. Keep an eye on Landon Jackson, too, a player who reported to the building this offseason in a completely different physical shape. Noticeably bigger and stronger, clearly built to transition from a stand-up edge rusher back into more of a traditional hand-in-the-dirt role, which is exactly what he thrived at in college. Between Sanders and Jackson, this new scheme could unlock a level of production from Buffalo's defensive front that simply wasn't possible under the old system. So there it is. According to the worldwide leader TJ, Sanders is Buffalo's breakout candidate for 2026. Bills Mafia, sound off. Is it Sanders? Is it Landon Jackson? Or do you think Deone Walker already broke out during his rookie season and shouldn't even qualify for this conversation anymore? Let us know down in the comments. Now, let's get into the part of this story that should genuinely make your blood boil. James Cook getting disrespected on a league-wide running back ranking. NFL coaches, scouts, and executives were polled and asked to rank the top running backs in football for 2026, and James Cook, the reigning NFL rushing champion, landed all the way down at number 7. 7, let that sink in for a second. This is a man who led the entire league in rushing yards last season. This is a man who NFL Pro's own advanced metrics crowned as one of the most efficient runners in all of football, and somehow 7 different voters looked at their ballots and decided 6 other backs deserved to rank ahead of him. Let's go through exactly who beat him out, because some of these names are more defensible than others. Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs at the top? Fine, no real argument there. Those two go off the board early in every fantasy draft in America, and for good reason. But then things get shaky. Saquon Barkley landing ahead of Cook is a real head-scratcher when you consider Barkley took a massive statistical step back from his monster prior season, and he's not getting any younger. Christian McCaffrey ranking ahead of Cook makes some sense purely through a fantasy lens, especially playing in Kyle Shanahan's scheme where his receiving work inflates his numbers. But as a pure runner of the football, in a vacuum, you take James Cook over McCaffrey every single day of the week, especially given the injury concerns that have followed McCaffrey's career. Jonathan Taylor is a legitimate coin flip. No shame in that one either way. And then there's Derrick Henry, still somehow defying father time year after year, but even there, you can make a strong case for Cook given the massive gap in youth and explosiveness between the two backs. Here's what one NFL insider had to say about the situation, and it perfectly captures the absurdity of where Cook landed. The reasoning boiled down to this: Cook's overall body of work honestly deserves a higher ranking. But the running backs already sitting ahead of him on ballots simply weren't going to relinquish those spots. Cook actually came agonizingly close to overtaking Derrick Henry in the voting, but ultimately fell just short. What can't be argued is the URSM. Cook was one of only 5 running backs in the entire league to appear on every single ballot, a testament to just how respected he is across the sport, thanks in large part to a league-leading 1,621 rushing yards last season. And it's not just about volume. He also led the entire NFL in rushing yards over expected, a metric that strips away scheme and offensive line help and measures pure individual performance. This isn't just an eye-test opinion, Bills Mafia. The spreadsheets back it up too. Yards before contact, yards over expected. Every efficiency marker in the book says James Cook is one of the most special runners in all of football. And it's not a one-year fluke either. Cook has been a 1,000-yard rusher in each of the last 4 seasons, and across the past 3 years specifically, he's basically been an 1,100-yard rusher on average, with last season's 1,621-yard explosion representing a career high, albeit boosted somewhat by a career-high 309 carries. But even accounting for that volume, his efficiency has climbed every single year, going from 4.7 yards per carry up to 4.9, and now sitting at a ridiculous 5.2 yards per carry. He's also become a legitimate touchdown machine, partly a byproduct of just how often Buffalo's offense finds itself deep in opposing territory, but the finishing ability is undeniably real. Now let's really dig into the advanced numbers because they paint Cook as an absolute problem for opposing defenses in more ways than one. He posted 358 rushing yards over expected in the regular season, the most in the entire NFL. He also broke off 39 explosive runs, the second most in the league, trailing only one other back. And here's the part that should really stand out. This isn't some scheme-dependent gadget play running back. Cook is a legitimately dominant, consistent runner between the tackles. Under center specifically, he ran the ball at an 80% rate, the fifth highest rate in the entire NFL, and he averaged an absurd 5.5 yards per carry on those under center runs, the third best mark in football. He also generated 36 of his explosive runs specifically from under center formations, 10 more than the next closest running back in the league. This man is an old-school, smash-mouth, north-south runner who happens to also be dynamic enough to hit home runs on the perimeter. Yes, playing behind a strong offensive line and a dangerous supporting cast helps. That's true of most backs ranked in the top 10 across the league, but the individual production and efficiency here speaks for itself. And here's the part that should really excite Bills Mafia heading into 2026. Cook's role in the passing game might be about to expand in a major way. Remember, Cook was originally drafted into this league with the expectation that he'd be a dynamic weapon catching passes out of the backfield, but that side of his game has been criminally underutilized over the past couple of seasons. Enter new offensive coordinator addition Pete Carmichael Jr., who spent years in New Orleans consistently funneling targets to Alvin Kamara in every conceivable way. If that same philosophy translates to Buffalo, expect Cook's receiving role to take a real leap forward this season, which could easily push him further up these rankings by next year. And that likely means a shift in snap distribution across the backfield too. Ray Davis figures to see a slightly bigger workload as the clear backup, and Ty Johnson will still carve out some third down usage, but if Cook truly becomes a bigger factor as a receiver, expect him eating into those passing down snaps that have gone to Johnson in years past. Bills Mafia has been begging to see Cook on the field during high-leverage passing situations for a while now, and it sounds like that could finally be changing in 2026. So Bills Mafia, fill in the blank for us. James Cook is the blank best running back in the entire NFL. Is he top 5? Top 3? Are you ready to call him the single best running back in football? Drop your answer down in the comments. We want to see it. And before we wrap things up, one more piece of business. Because training camp is closing in fast. Buffalo's training camp officially kicks off just 3 weeks from now, and after a stretch of practices, everything builds toward an August scrimmage at the brand-new stadium in Orchard Park, marking the transition away from the old training camp location and giving fans their first real taste of Bills football inside the new building. And if that wasn't enough, the organization has already added an additional open practice for fans at the new stadium later in August as well. In other words, Bills Mafia, football is almost back. So there you have it. ESPN thinks TJ Sanders is about to have his breakout moment in Jim Leonard's new scheme. And meanwhile, league executives, coaches, and scouts somehow still aren't giving James Cook the full respect he's earned as one of the most dynamic, efficient running backs in all of football. Two wildly different storylines, both worth watching closely as we march toward the regular season. Let us know down in the comments who you think breaks out bigger this year and where you truly believe James Cook belongs on that running back list. And if you're as fired up for Bills football as we are, do us a favor, smash that like button, drop your predictions in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed to the Bills Report so you never miss a single breakdown all off-season long. Training camp is almost here, and we'll be right there.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.